Jehovah's Witnesses say they have the truth. But if the truth can change, can you really call it that? I left the Jehovah's Witness organization fairly recently. And if you want to hear my story, you can check out the previous video. But today I want to share a pretty shocking conversation I had with a circuit overseer that, to me, it exposed the Achilles heel of the entire religion. And I want to share that conversation with you along with arguably the best question you can ask a witness to really get them thinking about what they believe and whether it actually is true. So this conversation happened early in my process of questioning and studying. I requested this meeting with the circuit overseer, which for those of you who might not know is a traveling elder or pastor. And I asked for this meeting to discuss what was my biggest challenge at the time, which was 1914. Now, for those of you who are familiar with that subject, you know it can get pretty deep, pretty fast. So I'll have to do a whole other video on that. But essentially, I asked him over to talk about this, and I shared my research, my notes. I'd spent hours studying this. And so I had a whole bunch of papers and documents kind of ready to share with him. And after we spent, probably an hour or so going through all of this and me explaining where I was hitting a wall, what he said kind of floored me. After talking it through and going back and forth, he said, well, who knows? It could change. Maybe you're right. Maybe the organization will change the teaching on 1914. And that answer kind of blew me away. I immediately asked him, I said, how could it change? It's so pivotal for everything. That's when the organization teaches that Jesus' kingdom was established. That's when they teach that Satan was thrown down to the earth. That's when they teach that the last days began. How could it change? And immediately he started to kind of reverse a little bit and say, well, yeah, maybe not. The meeting quickly ended. And the next day he sent me a text message saying, I read those articles on jw.org. You should reread them. I think they have all the answers. And 1914 it makes sense to me. And that was the end of that. And after that conversation, my takeaway was, if 1914 can change, if something that foundational to the whole witness theology can change, is there anything that's off limits? Is there anything that couldn't change? Any witnesses or people who are familiar with the organization's history know that there's been a lot of teachings that have changed through the years, whether it's generations, blood fractions, even as far as worshiping Jesus to then saying that that's a form of idolatry. Some pretty major theological changes have happened over the years. But the crazy thing is that witnesses are conditioned to think not just that these are normal, but to actually be excited for these changes. Every time there's an annual meeting or new light that's being brought forward, it's exciting. It's exciting to see, well, whoa, what are we gonna teach now? What are we changing our beliefs to now? But here's the thing. If truth can change so often, was it really truth in the first place? And how can you be certain that it's truth now? That moment with the circuit overseer made me realize something. And I want to ask every Jehovah's Witness watching this, is there any teaching at all that the Watchtower currently teaches that you can say with 100% certainty will still be taught the same way 5 years from now? I'll repeat it because I think it's such an important question. Is there any teaching that the Watchtower organization teaches today that you can be 100% certain it will still be teaching the same way 5 years from now? See, Jehovah's Witnesses often talk about unity and how you can go into any congregation around the world and you'll be taught the same thing. You'll even be taught from the same publications. You're going through the study material at the same time. And maybe there's something to that unity. But what would happen if you were to bring together believers from the past century, from every decade of the past century? They would all believe different things. There would not be unity. Some would believe that it's okay to worship Jesus. Others would believe that they're going to heaven, when eventually they would be taught that they're not. Others would believe in the cross. Others would be celebrating Christmas. Some would believe that blood fractions are not allowed for a Christian in good conscience. Others would believe that they are. You would not have unity if you were to bring all these believers together from across the decades. And I think that says something. Now, maybe you would listen to this and you would think, some beliefs are off limits. Some things could never change. But I want to share a story. My brother had a conversation with an elder as he was going through the process of asking questions. And he asked the elder, if the organization started teaching the Trinity tomorrow, would you accept it? And after thinking about it for a second, the elder said, yeah, I would, because the organization would teach it in a way that it would make sense. Think about that for a second. If you were a witness, if you are a witness, we all know how strongly the organization has taught against the Trinity. But if an elder could say that, yeah, if the organization changed their mind on that tomorrow and they started teaching the Trinity, I would accept it. What wouldn't you accept? Because for many witnesses, at the end of the day, truth is whatever the organization says it is. But God doesn't change, and truth doesn't change. And if the governing body can reverse their position on anything, even God's nature, then nothing is safe. No truth now can be guaranteed to be held as true 5 years from now. So I think the best you can do as a witness is echo the words that the CEO, that circuit overseer, said to me. Who knows? It could change. And you have to just be okay with that. I couldn't be okay with that. And I think many others feel the same way. And I would challenge anyone listening right now, if you're a witness, ask yourself that question. What beliefs do you hold today that you can say with 100% certainty you will still hold 5 years from now? And if you're a non-witness, someone who left, consider asking your loved ones that same question, just to start some conversation and stir up some thought. Because if the foundation isn't firm, then everything built on it will be unstable. And if the truth can change, then is it really the truth? Thanks so much for watching. If you got something out of it, I hope you'll like, subscribe, and stick around for future videos where I'll be diving into some of these topics in a deeper way. God bless.